Hey guys, what's going on? This is Travis. I'd like to welcome you back to the channel. Well, this is a bit of a change from what we usually put on this channel. You know, typically we show coffee or technology, retro tech and stuff like that, old laptops, but today I'm going to share with you one of my favorite recipes. This is actually a throwback to my college days. This is very easy to make, it's very inexpensive, it's very hearty, it's tasty, it's a piece of cake to cook it up. And so what I'm going to show you how to make today is black beans and rice with ground pork sausage. Now, you can make this with hamburger if you want to, you can make this with tofu, pretty much any kind of protein source that you want to, or you can leave the meat out altogether if you want to. Now to make it, it's only going to take a few basic ingredients. Okay, so while it's perfectly fine to make Cuban black beans and rice with, you know, like just rice and seasoning and this and that, I cheat a little bit. One of my absolute favorites is Vigo Authentic Recipe Black Beans and Rice. I will put a link to Amazon that shows you how to get to this. Again, I got no affiliate discounts, I got no bonuses in getting off of doing this. I'm just showing you how to make really good food. You can sometimes buy this at mom and pop grocery stores. I've seen it at Walmart, Target, and so on. Not everybody carries it. It runs about $2.50 a bag, sometimes $1.75 depending on where you're buying it. And pretty much everything you need except for the meat is right here in the bag. Now, you can dress up this recipe with some green peppers if you want to, or some onions. They have a recipe on the back to make more of a Spanish style, authentic Cuban black beans and rice. And they talk about some of the additional mix-ins for it on the back of the bag. A little bit on the nutritional information real quick. We're looking at 200 calories per serving and 0 grams of saturated, 0 grams of trans fat, 0.5 of a gram of total fat, 0 grams of cholesterol. You've got 6 grams of protein per serving. There's a little bit of iron in there. Unfortunately, if you're somebody who is salt sensitive or you got high blood pressure, you got to watch your sodium intake. It does have 790 milligrams of sodium. So for a lot of people, unfortunately, that's going to push this one out the door. You're not going to be able to make it. But if you don't really have to worry about that kind of thing, you just enjoy the food that you normally eat, or you can enjoy this in moderation, this is definitely the way to go. So you're going to need to get yourself a bag of Vigo black beans and rice, authentic Cuban recipe. A can of sweet corn. There's a lot of filler that I put in this that kind of makes a bigger portion. And when I was eating this stuff in college, and now you can make it for about $5.50, which is enough to make 2 or 3 good sized portions. Get your favorite ground pork sausage. You can do Jimmy Dean. This is some just mom and pop grocery store fresh ground pork sausage, or if you want, you can use hamburger, or again, like I said, any other kind of meat that you want to, or non-meat product. I like to top mine off when it's all done. And I know it just tacks on the sodium, but sriracha goes really good on this stuff. It's even better the next day when it gets a chance to kind of sit and marinate overnight and you heat it up the next day. Or you can top it off with some Valentina hot sauce or Tapatio or Cholula, pretty much whatever you want to do. You know, it's pretty much your oyster when you're putting it together. I like to use like a 3-quart kind of stock pot or cooking pot. And I find if you go too big on the pot, then it boils down too quickly when you're making it. And you really got to kind of watch the moisture level while you're cooking it. But it's super easy to make, it's very tasty, and it's one of the favorites around our household. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first things first, I like to go ahead and cook a pound of ground pork sausage. And again, you can get it with seasoning, sometimes without seasoning. That's pretty much up to you. Just go ahead and drop it in your frying pan or your pot. Now you also want to take your can of corn and drain the water out of it. And keep that on standby as we're going to be adding the corn to the pork here in just a little bit. You're going to kind of saute the corn a little bit so it gets cooked and it adds a little bit of flavor to it. Just go ahead and break up your pork sausage. And once we get this into crumbles, we will come right back. So hang tight. Oh yes, and before I forget, you want to cook this over medium-high heat. I like to do kind of like a number 7 setting out of 10 on my range top. So medium-high heat, medium heat's fine. You don't want to scorch it, so don't crank it up all the way. You know, range tops are going to vary if you use gas or electric, and so on. Okay, so I've been cooking this pork sausage for about 4 minutes right now, just on medium-high heat. It's gone from being all pink to kind of a light brown color. You're going to get a different amount of grease in this pan depending on what brand of pork sausage you buy. This is a very lean pork sausage made at the grocery store. A lot of your commercial brands like Jimmy Dean, Farmland, you know, Kirkland and stuff like that, they tend to have a lot more fat content in them, in my opinion. So you're going to get a lot more grease in the bottom of the pan. Now I also like to swap out spoons just because we're going from raw pork to cooked pork. So at this point you can swap out or clean off your spoon with soapy water if you want to. We're just going to go ahead and swap it out with a clean spoon, okay? Or spatula, whatever you want to use. So we're going to stir this a little bit. Now what you want to do is go ahead and take your can of corn and just go ahead and toss it in there. We're just going to saute it a little bit. Now here's the deal. I want you to keep the can around because we're going to put the grease in there as soon as this is done cooking for probably about another 5 minutes or so. And we'll go ahead and drain the grease. And then you actually are going to want to take this out of the bowl, pour it into another bowl, or put it on a plate, whatever works for you, whatever you have sitting around. because you could, in theory, cook the black beans and rice in here with the meat. The problem you run into is that the water doesn't quite saturate into the beans and rice the way that it's supposed to, because it has to fight through all the pork and the corn. Or you could do this in a separate pot if you want to, all together. That's basically up to you. So we're gonna go and cook this for 5 minutes, and then we're going to drain the grease. Okay, so I've got the pork and the corn. They've been cooking together for about another 4 to 5 minutes here. So we're gonna go ahead and take them off the heat. I do recommend that you drain off the grease when you're doing this. You don't have to if you don't want to, but just push everything down towards the bottom. Again, I'm kind of doing this video for people maybe that don't have the cooking experience. So all you gotta do is just go ahead and drain it off. And you can see this is some of the juice coming off of the pork. Some of this might be water coming off of the corn. You can save this if you want to. It's gonna make almost like a grease or a broth once it solidifies a little bit. So we're gonna get all that grease out of there. It's also a way to save on a little bit of fat and calories, and maybe a little bit of sodium too. And again, you may or may not want to season your pork sausage. If it already comes seasoned out of the package, you can read that on the packaging. It'll tell you you might not want to add any to it. So I'm going to take this now, these contents, I'm going to go ahead and just pour this in a little bowl that we have off to the side. Okay, so one of the reasons why you don't want to put this on a hot burner is if you set it down and you walk away, it could start scorching the grease that's in there. And so this is going to call for 3 1/4 cups of water. I like to do 3 1/2. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you're cooking this down, this will prevent you from having to add a lot of extra water to it. If you're not careful, I know it says 3 1/4, but I've had it end up being too dry, even though I had it on a low heat when it was sitting there simmering. So just go ahead and take your water at this point. Go ahead and bring this water up to a boil. It shouldn't take too long to do. Now it does say put a lid on the top while you're doing so. Unfortunately, I don't have the original lid for this pot, so you could just use a piece of foil if you want to. I'm just gonna go ahead and set this lid on the top, which gives it some sort of a seal. Now it's better to have a regular lid for the pan, and unfortunately, like I said, I don't know where the lid went for this one. So we're gonna let that come to a boil, and then we're going to add our contents of the package. So keep your contents on standby. In just a couple minutes, we'll be mixing this all together. Okay, good news. I did find the lid for the pot, so I went ahead and put that on there while the water's coming up to a boil. You wanna keep this lid handy, watch out, it's gonna be hot. We got our boiling water. Like I said, I like to add an extra 1/4 cup of water versus what the package actually says. I did go ahead and move this back to the original burner. I forgot that burner is smaller, so this one is the correct size, but you can still run it on a smaller burner if you want to. It doesn't really make a difference. So let's go ahead and add the contents of the package here slowly and stir into the water. Again, there's no water, there's no meat and there's no corn in this water. It's just strictly the package and the contents, okay? Now I do have this on high, and what we want to do is bring this up to a boil. So as soon as you get a pretty good boil where you're starting to see some bubbles coming up and so on, I'd recommend maybe turning it down to like a 4 or 3. I sometimes do about a 3 1/2, and I will tell you what to do from there. So go ahead, just let this sit, and as you see it really start to boil up, just go ahead and turn the heat down to probably a 3 or 4, which is not taking long. As you can see, this is already starting to boil over right here. So I'm gonna let this go for maybe about 30 seconds or so, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and turn the heat down to probably 3 1/2. Okay, so that's pretty much the boil that you're looking for here, so we'll go ahead and just put it on like a 3 1/2. And at this point, just give it one more little stir, and then you're gonna wanna go ahead and just put a lid on the top of it. If you don't have a lid, you can just use aluminum foil. Watch out, it's probably gonna be a little bit hot, okay? Now, okay, you can just let it sit, and what you wanna do is go ahead and set a timer for 10 minutes. Go ahead and set a timer for 10 minutes. You want to come back and stir it. So we'll do that, give it 10 minutes. You can see what it's going to look like, and I'll tell you what to do from there. Okay guys, so after just 10 minutes of boiling, just at a low heat, this is pretty much what it looks like, okay? So it's still a little bit soupy. You can just keep it on the heat setting that it's on. What we're going to do is we're going to let it go for another, let's see, I think we're just going to do another 5 minutes with the lid on. We're going to turn the heat up just a little tiny bit. We'll just go 3 1/2. I did put it down to 3 earlier, okay? All right, so we're going to come back in 5 minutes. We're going to add the meat, let it cook for another 5 minutes, and then you are good to go. Okay guys, so we're looking at about 15 minutes of simmer time with just one stir at some point in between that 15 minutes. We'll go ahead and take it off here for a sec. All right, so this is what you have for your consistency. Now when you stir it, that moisture is going to immediately start to sink in. At this point, it's starting to look fairly well cooked. Now the package is going to call for 20 to 25 minutes of total cook time. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and turn it up to 4 and go ahead and mix in the ground pork and the corn. Get it all in there and mix it up really good. cover it, let it go for another 5 minutes, and then we should be all set to go. So like I said, at this point, you're basically just heating the corn. You're gonna be finalizing the black beans and rice. Now, this might be too much meat for some people, but you might wanna go maybe with a ½ pound instead. Just go ahead and stir it up nice. And at this point, things should be cooked fairly well. Now, again, like I said, you can make this without any meat if you want to. You can go the vegan route, whatever works best for you. You can throw pretty much anything in here that you want to. So things are mixed up really good. So we're gonna leave it on just a setting of 4. We're gonna give it 5 more minutes for a total of 25 minutes of cooking time. We should be good to go. Now, just the black beans and rice by itself typically cooks up in 20 minutes. And we're pretty much at about that point. So we're gonna give it 5 more minutes, and we'll see how it looks. Okay guys, so we went for another 7 minutes instead of 5, no big deal, for a total cook time of 22 minutes. You can take it a little bit longer if you want to before you mix the meat in. You're gonna have to kind of figure out what works best for your range. So you just kind of stir it all up. Absolutely delicious. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and put this in a couple big bowls just to show you what kind of servings you can expect to get out of this. And it's very, very tasty. It's awesome. You can mix in jalapenos if you want to. It also makes a very starchy filler for tortillas if you want to make yourself some sort of a burrito or anything along those lines too. You can really throw it in there if you want to. It's all good to go. So let's go ahead and get this dished up and we'll see what we think. All right, so as you can see, this made 2 really good sized bowls. We just got a ground of pork sausage, a can of corn, a package of Vigo, and you could make probably 3 decent size, if not 4, cereal bowl size servings out of this. And again, these bowls are filled up. Stuff's even better the next day. If you guys ever make this, maybe chime in with some of your favorite mix-ins. I've made this with like smoked sausages before. I've made it with hamburger. I've never made it with bacon before, but that would probably be pretty good. You can do it with chicken if you want to. You got a lot of options, maybe some shrimp, I don't know. So anyway, let's go and dish them up real quick and try it out. So the nice thing about having a food that takes 20 or 25 minutes to cook is it gives you plenty of time to do things like change out of the work clothes and go work on some work and stuff like that. And so anyway, this is what you get when you're done. It is absolutely awesome. Put a little bit of Cholula on there. Again, whatever hot sauce works for you. And again, the longer you let it set out, the more the flavor really starts to come out of it. Let's try it. Very, very good. By the way, my dog is eating in the background, so if you hear something crunching, that's actually him and not me. It's awesome. It's a little bit salty, but you definitely got that great. A little bit of cumin flavor comes through on it. Very hearty, very rich, very tasty. So that's it, guys. That's all it takes to make Vigo black beans and rice with ground pork sausage. Guys, if you like what you see, please like or subscribe. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can also check out my A channel, Travis P11. It's a great channel, lots of good stuff on there. But in the meantime, guys, I want you to have fun. I want you to be safe. Make sure you like or subscribe, mash that bell so you don't miss out. And as you know, we will talk to you soon. Y'all have a great week, and we'll talk to you later. All right, bye-bye.